I read 9 books in the first week of 2026. Let's go over my thoughts and rating. No One Saw a Thing by Andrea follows a mother named Sive, and her two daughters get onto the train, and the train takes off without her. She motions to a stranger to help her daughters get off at the next stop, and at the next stop, one of her daughters gets off, but the other is missing. I knew the who of it all very early on. I had my suspicions, and then I just got tunnel vision for the entirety of the book. I didn't know the why or the how, but I knew who did it. Now, don't get me wrong, Andrea did a very good job at placing red herrings. They would have misdirected me had I not been so sure of myself. My theory on the motive of everything definitely changed a lot throughout because of the red herrings. I was pulled in a lot of different directions, but yeah, the who of it all never changed for me. This book had sinister webs of deception. So many of the characters had these secrets with these perfectly curated facades, and I just had a really good time while I was reading this. While I did know the who of it all, I will say that there were some shocking revelations that I didn't see coming that had my head spinning. I had a good time with this read, and I rated it 3.75 stars. Itch by Gemma Amore follows Josie, who has to move back to her hometown because she's down on her luck, and she stumbles upon the body of a decaying woman covered in ants in the forest. She, for whatever reason, is just absolutely determined to figure out what happened to this woman. This book is full of creepy crawly bug descriptions that really got under my skin, and it had some very gruesome body horror that I just really enjoyed. This is an unaliving mystery folk horror book, and I just really enjoyed the writing style throughout. I was just absolutely entranced by the writing, and I throughout was not being a detective whatsoever. I was just along for the ride, and so color me surprised by the ending. I was absolutely floored. I think in hindsight, I probably could have guessed the ending, but I'm really glad that I didn't. I thought this book was delightfully unsettling. I absolutely loved the atmosphere and vibe of the story, and I rated it 4.5 stars. The Killing Kind by Jane Casey follows Ingrid, who is a lawyer who once defended this guy named John Webster for stalking. He then turned on her, started stalking her, and essentially ruined her life. Then one day, one of Ingrid's colleagues is using her umbrella when she is run down by a car. Ingrid then believes she was the intended target, and now John Webster has come forward saying that he believes Ingrid is in danger and that he is the only one that can protect her. This is a multi-layered story that is fairly long-winded. This is kind of a long book, but I think that the writing and the way that this story was told really flowed so well that I was able to just fly through it. With so many different moving parts and many characters, I was definitely getting pulled in so many different directions that I didn't know what to pay attention to, which led to me being properly misdirected. I didn't at all guess the ending of this book, and my head was absolutely spinning when all was revealed. It was engaging and twisty, had diabolical characters and cover-ups, and I was engaged throughout. I had a lot of fun with this book. I rated it 4.25 stars, and it's also now a series on Hulu. Has anyone seen it? Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker publishes on April 21st, and it follows two different people in different generations that find that their worlds have been connected through a window. In present day, we have Lee, and he has blacked out the memory of unaliving his roommate. And then in 1877, we have a woman named Sen, who is a samurai who is hiding from imperial soldiers. I was a huge fan of Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker, so I was very excited to get my hands on this book. Now, I will say I had my reservations about Sen's storyline specifically. With the samurais and the imperial soldiers and stuff, I'm just not big on like war theme and like combat forward books, and so I was a little bit hesitant and thought that maybe it wouldn't be my taste. And while there are certain parts that were a little bit not my taste, ultimately the way that Kylie Lee Baker introduced this character and her storyline just really worked for me. That being said, I was definitely more interested in Lee's storyline throughout. I just love an unreliable narrator and an unaliving aspect, so of course, I was drawn to that one just a little bit more. These two people with lives that would seemingly have nothing in common work together to craft a riveting story of loss, identity exploration and struggles, familial dysfunction and expectation, sacrifice and the impact of history with magical realism and Japanese folklore. I rated Japanese Gothic 4 stars. Skin Deep by Liz Nugent follows the story of how a woman named Cordelia becomes a fraudulent socialite with an unalived man in her hotel room. So throughout the story, we are following Cordelia from her childhood up until the point where she ends up with this dead guy. And oh my goodness, this woman is just awful. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a diabolical FMC, but this woman was just a drag in every sense of the word. She is just an inexcusably horrible person who plays the victim the entire book, and I could not stand her, and it made this book an absolute chore to get through. I've loved two other books by this author, and so I was trying to trust the process. The only thing I didn't struggle with was the writing and the way the story was told, but beyond that, boy, I did not like this. It was just so sad, and I was feeling absolutely so depressed after I finished it that I had to put on my 2010s playlist at full volume and dance away the dark haze. I don't understand why this book is categorized as a thriller mystery. Yeah, there is a mystery aspect with the dead guy, which ultimately did surprise me but had me rolling my eyes too. But this wasn't at all thrilling. I don't know. I hated it, to be honest. I didn't like it a bit. I'm rating it 1 star. Molka by Monica Kim publishes on April 30th, and it follows 2 different people and 2 different storylines that intertwine. The first one is Dahai, and she finds herself in a romance with a wealthy celebrity heir. And then the other storyline is her coworker, a guy named Ja Young, who likes to hide cameras in the bathroom and film women without their consent. Oh, and he's pining after Dahai for the entire book. This book dives headfirst into the violating nature of these creeps that like to film women without their consent. It is smart, hard-hitting, and absolutely gut-wrenching. This book is full of female rage and revenge and had me engaged the entire time. I think my favorite part about this book was the fact that while I do love a headstrong FMC that doesn't take any crap, Dahai wasn't that initially. I think the reality of her being a flawed person who can be manipulated was very refreshing, and her exploration into finding her confidence was just such a journey that I really appreciated. I thought this was an impactful, engaging, and entertaining read. I absolutely loved it, and I rated it 4.5 stars. Firstborn by Will Dean follows Molly, who travels to New York City when she finds out that her identical twin has been unalived. She dives headfirst into an investigation of figuring out what her sister was up to and what led to her demise, and she uncovers a lot of skeletons. I think the plotline of this book sounded really interesting, and I was gripped by it immediately. It had some expertly placed red herrings that pulled me in a lot of different directions and had me theorizing all of the different possibilities of where this could lead. There were shocking secrets, diabolical characters, messy drama, all leading to what would have been an explosive ending had it not been absolutely ridiculous. The motive was one thing that just didn't really make any sense to me and I couldn't get on board with, and then it also had a type of ending that I've expressed not liking in a book before without saying what it actually was. But then this one had an extra layer that just made it even more, yeah, okay, that I just couldn't get on board with. I really would have rated this quite high had the ending not been what it was, but ultimately I'm rating this book 3.5 stars. Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews is a YA horror book that follows Andrew, whose best friend Thomas is accused of unaliving his parents after they mysteriously vanish. Thomas is not doing well, obviously, and Andrew would do anything for him, so one day he follows Thomas into the Forbidden Forest, where he finds out that Thomas's stories and drawings have come to life, and they now must battle these monsters to stop them from unaliving anyone they love. This is my 3rd book by this author, and their writing just really scratches an itch in my brain and is just absolutely delightful to read. It's haunting, whimsical, intriguing, and absolutely addicting. While this is a YA story and definitely does feel like it is throughout the story, I just couldn't help but be transported into it. I'm not a huge YA fan, but this one just really worked for me. The vivid imagery and riveting plotline paired with the boy's internal struggles with his identity and desires was just so powerful. I love botanical horror. I thought this was beautifully written and well crafted. Characters were well fleshed out. I don't have enough good things to say about this book. I absolutely loved it and I rated it 5 stars. All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. You guys have been asking me to read this since it came out, and I'm so sorry that I didn't listen until now. This story follows the lives of a community following the rescue of a young girl by a local boy named Patch. While Patch was kidnapped and in captivity, he met a girl, and so throughout this story, we are trying to figure out who his captor was and who this mysterious girl was that no one seems to think exists. What a brilliant and beautifully told story. It's a little bit of a serial unaliver thriller, definitely has heavy themes of friendship, family, and community, a subplot of romance, and it's also a historical fiction. I fell in love with the characters in this book, and as we followed them throughout their lives, I just felt more and more of a connection to them and more invested in their story and everything that happened with them, which made everything that did happen very impactful for me. This is a longer read, and I have to admit I was intimidated by its size, but once I started reading it, I was just absolutely absorbed. I could not put it down and I did not want it to end. It surprised me with some twists. It pulled on my heartstrings and it took me on a journey I wasn't expecting. I was obsessed with this and I rated it 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching. Now please leave me a comment and let me know your favorite book that you read in the first week of 2026. Mine was a tie between Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews and All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker.